Are losing hope. Some turn to alcohol at 13. Some drop out of school because there's no point. And in Peru, in mining towns, deep in the mountains, boys work 12-hour shifts, inhaling deadly chemicals without any masks or protection. They go in as children, but come out as something else. Silent, tired, and empty. And what hurts me the most is that these boys are invisible. Nobody talks about them. Nobody cries for them. Nobody protects them. They're just boys who never got to feel like boys. And yet, they're called strong boys. But Dad, what is strength when it comes from pain that could have been prevented? Dad, why are boys in South America so easily pulled into crime, drugs, and gangs? Is it just poverty, or is it the world teaching them that the only way to survive is to become what hurts them?
Heavenly good. You ask me one of the hardest questions any adult shouldn't have to answer. Why do so many boys in South America become criminals, addicts, and killers? Why do they turn into what hurt them? And my answer is this: because pain ignored becomes pain repeated. And in South America, pain has been ignored for generation of generation. Boys aren't being raised. They are surviving in a war that no one admits exists. In Brazil, the statistics are terrifying. According to the Brazilian Forum on Public Safety, in 2022 alone, over 6,500 teenagers were killed, and more than 80% of them were black boys from poor communities. They aren't gang leaders. They are not criminals. They are victims of a system that gave them guns before giving them guidance. Favelas are war zones. Everybody know that. Boys wake up to gunshots. They walk past bodies on their way to school. And many stop going to school because school don't protect them. No. So, who do they turn to? The gang? Not because they want to kill, but because the gang offers what society never did. A meal, a mattress, and a family. The boys aren't choosing evil. They are choosing the only path that acknowledge their existence. In Colombia, war didn't end. It just changed uniform. According to Human Rights Watch, since 1999, more than 16,000 children, mostly boys, have been recruited by armed groups. Some are kidnapped, some are brainwashed, some are traded like objects. Heavenly good. But all of them are used to kill, used to smuggle, used to intimidate. These boys are trained not to feel. Their pain is erased, their innocence stolen. So by the time they return to the society, if they ever do, they are no longer boys. They are trauma walking around in human skin. In Venezuela, the economy collapsed, but humanity collapsed faster. According to the World Food Program, 1 in 3 Venezuelans is food insecure. But in the poorest neighborhood, it's worse for boys. Teenage boys are now part of survivor gangs group that steal, smuggle, and sometimes kill. Not because they want to, but because it's that or starve. And many are even sexually exploited. And do you know what that does to a boy's mind? When his first experience of intimacy is abuse, and when that abuse is what keeps his siblings alive, it teaches him that his body is not his, that is only as useful as his pain. And when he believes that, he stops seeing himself as human, and that's how he becomes the monster. Because the world never gave him a chance to stay soft. See, Argentina faces an economic crisis every few years, and boys in poor families suffer silently. UNICEF reports that over 57% of children in Argentina live in poverty, and teenage alcohol abuse among boys is rising rapidly. Many fathers are jobless, many mothers are depressed, and boys, they drop out of school, they wander the streets, they turn to alcohol or self-harm. And because masculinity is still tied to silence and strength, no one sees their pain. They could be bleeding emotionally, they will still be told, get a job and be a man. But how can a boy be a man when he was never allowed to be a child? How? That is not possible. In the mining regions of Peru, thousands of boys are sent into toxic pits and caves to dig for gold. Some of them are only 10 years old. Human Rights Watch called these zones dangerous death traps. Boys inhale mercury. They sleep on cold rocks. They work 10, 12 to 14 hours. And when they cry, they are slapped. When they collapse, they are replaced by another boy. Heavenly God, these boys are not worker. They are slaves of greed, slave of silence, slave of a world that never thought their dreams were worth protecting. Heavenly God, the world made a deadly deal. And the deal is, to boys, you can't be protected, then become dangerous. In South America, they have turned pain into power, but the wrong kind of power. Power with no purpose. Power rooted in trauma. Power that hurts whoever comes close. That's why gangs thrive over there. That's why addiction spread. Because a boy who has never been hugged might mistake a gun for safety. And a boy who has never been told I love you with a hug might force himself to be feared. And the system calls it crime, but I call it cries that were ignored for too long. You ask me if it's more than poverty. It is about fatherlessness. It is about emotional starvation. It's about a culture that teaches boys how to kill but never how to feel. And South America doesn't just need food. It needs healing. The future of those countries won't be decided by election. It will be decided by whether or not we help boys stay human. Because if we don't, then girls will keep getting married to broken men. And broken men will keep raising broken boys. And that circle, it will not end until we say boys deserve better than survivor. They deserve love and they deserve life.
Dad, I live in Europe where people say children are safe, laws are strong, and life is good. But I want to say something very clearly. Safety is not the same thing as healing. And just because boys here are not starving, that doesn't mean that they're okay. In the UK, every week I hear of boys stabbed, not by strangers, but by other boys their own age. According to the Office for National Statistics, over 240 teenagers were killed by knife crime in England and Wales between 2019 and 2023. Most of them were boys. Most of them were under 18. And you know what's scary? These knife gangs are not just about violence. They're about loneliness. Many of these boys don't have fathers. Many don't feel seen at home, so they join a gang just to feel like someone cares. In Ireland, I see a different kind of sadness. Some boys are not in gangs. They're not violent, but they are lost. They sit at bus stops all day, smoke weed, talk about nothing. Some live on social welfare, but not because they're lazy or because they're numb. They just don't believe in the future. And when people call them junkies or failures, nobody asks what they've been through. Some of them grew up in homes with abuse. Some were kicked out of school and never got another chance. And now they're young men, addicted, depressed, and emotionally flat. You see them on the streets, but nobody sees inside them. In France, immigrant boys are treated like outsiders, even if they were born there. In Germany, boys from refugee families struggle in silence. In Ukraine, boys are growing up with war on TV and bombs outside their windows. In Russia, some boys are jailed for saying what they believe. In Spain, the suicide rate for teenage boys is rising, but boys still don't know how to ask for help. In Italy, boys are expected to be charming and macho, but no one tells them how to love gently. Dad.
Yeah?
Even in these quiet, beautiful cities, boys are still in pain.
Yeah.
Not because they're poor, but because they're empty. Empty of purpose.
Yeah.
Empty of trust. Empty of connection. They are smart, but not inspired. Protected, but unparented. And Europe hides all this with pretty buildings and perfect systems. But what's the point of living in a rich country if your soul feels bankrupt? Dad,
Yeah?
why is it that even in countries like Ireland, the UK, Germany, and France with peace, schools, and support systems, boys are still joining gangs, doing drugs, and disappearing into sadness? What is Europe missing when it comes to raising its boys right?
Heavenly God, you live in Europe. You see the playground, the clean streets, the good school. I've been watching what many parents refuse to admit. Europe is raising boys who are emotionally dying in silence. And it's not because they are poor. It is because they are unseen, unparented, and unhealed. The truth is, Europe gives boys everything except the one thing that matters most in life: emotional purpose. In the UK, when a 50-year-old stabs another boy, the headlines scream knife epidemic. But the real epidemic is fatherlessness, isolation, and emotional confusion. According to the Office for National Statistics, over 43,000 knife-related offenses were recorded in England and Wales in 2022 alone, and most of these involved boys under age 21, and some were only 13 years. These boys are not just bad kids, Heavenly God. They are children who don't trust love anymore. The gang gives them what the society didn't. The gang gives them a leader in father, a mission as a respect, and a system for belonging. They are not starving for fun. They are starving for identity. Because if they don't scare the world, they fear they will be forgotten by it. And in many cases, they are already have been. The world already forgotten them. Ireland, green country, looks peaceful. But peace is not the absence of bombs. Peace is the presence of purpose. And too many boys in Ireland have no reason to wake up. You see them sitting at train station at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, cigarettes in one hand, joints in their pocket, and their eyes empty. Not angry, not even rebellious. They are just tired of life. These are boys who left schools early. Some were labeled stupid. Some were told they would never amount to anything. And now they live off social welfare. Not because they are lazy, but because the system made them feel like they had nothing to offer. According to the Irish Health Research Board, there has been a 20% increase in teenage cannabis dependency since 2020. And guess who it's eating hardest? Boys aged 15 to 20. These are the boys we joke about. It's just a stoner. But what he really is a boy with no direction. A boy who needed a mentor but got a prescription. A boy who needed a structure but got silence. In France, many immigrant boys grow up with the feelings that no matter how hard they try, they will never be accepted. They are French on paper, but not in people's eyes. That's sad. According to a 2021 report by Defender of Rights, over 20% of boys from minority background reported repeated racial discrimination in schools and by police before turning 18. And so, they disconnected. They start to believe that rage is their only voice, that rebellious is their only identity. France, as a country, teaches them the language of liberty, but refuses them the experience of freedom. And that contradiction is destroying their souls. Germany is praised for order, for rules, for structure. But what's the cost? A growing mental health crisis among boys. According to Germany's Robert Koch Institute, 1 in 3 boys aged 11 to 17 report regular symptoms of anxiety or depression. But the system doesn't reward feelings. It rewards efficiency, achievement, and politeness. So German boys learn early. Don't cry, don't feel, don't speak. And Heavenly God, do you know what that creates? Functioning robots who eventually break down. They perform, they pass exam. They don't know how to connect. They grow up, marry, have children, but still don't know how to say, I'm struggling. Because their culture trains them to say, I'm fine, even when they are dying inside. Heavenly God, Russia and Ukraine have something in common right now. They are creating and modeling traumatized boys growing up in violent masculinity. In Russia, boys are drafted into war, trained to kill, told that silence is honor and pain is pride. What about Ukraine? Young boys are watching their homes fall. Some are now refugees scattered all over Europe. Others are now heads of household at 10, 12, and 14 years old. You see those two nations? They are producing boys who are numb before they are mature. And the world, Heavenly God, the world will feel the effect of that trauma for generations, for years. In Italy and Spain, there is warmth, but also pressure. Boys are raised to protect, to provide, to dominate. But who is teaching them how to love softly? In Spain, for example, the suicide rate among teenage boys has doubled since 2008. Why? Because we've taught boys how to charm a girl, but not how to deal with heartbreak. We've taught them how to win fight, but not how to resolve conflict. So when life hurts them, they don't talk, they just ghost. They gamble and they break. In Italy, many boys are raised with emotional pressure from their mothers, but without emotional modeling from their fathers. They grow up learning love as responsibility, not as relationship. Heavenly good, you ask me why boys are still broken in rich places. Here is the answer. Having everything is not the same as being sane. In Europe, boys have beds, they have meals, they have phones, they have teachers. But what they don't have is unconditional love, emotional training, and fathers who teach vulnerability. System that cares about healing, not just performance. And so the boys are clean, but they are depressed. Surrounded, but lonely. Intelligent, but purposeless. And unless Europe begins to raise boys who know how to feel, not just function, then its success will be seen as illusion built on silence.
Dad,
Yeah?
when people think of Australia and the Pacific, they picture beautiful beaches, kangaroos, peaceful towns, and happy people. But I've learned that even paradise can have pain. In Australia, the sun shines, but some boys are living in darkness. According to the Australian Bureau, suicide is the leading cause of death for boys and young men aged 15 to 24. That means boys are not dying because of guns or gangs. They're dying because of silence. Many of them never said anything, never cried, never asked for help. Because in Australia, boys are still taught the same old lie. Be tough, push through, don't talk. And for Aboriginal boys, it's even worse. The history of colonization, racism, and stolen generations has created a pain that hasn't gone away. Aboriginal boys are 4 times more likely to die by suicide than white Australian boys. And they're more likely to be locked up than helped. In New Zealand, the story is similar. Maori boys grow up hearing, "Be strong for the one now." But when they break down emotionally, many of them are left alone. The New Zealand Ministry of Health reported that Maori boys aged 10 to 14 have some of the highest self-harm rates in the country. In their culture, family is everything. But when that family is also hurting, where do the boys go? In Papua New Guinea, many boys grow up in villages where violence is normal and emotions are seen as weakness. Some are beaten into manhood. Others are forced into rituals that break their spirits. In some Pacific islands, boys are still raised in homes where domestic violence is called discipline and fear is used to control them. These boys are gentle by nature, but are forced to become hard. And it breaks my heart because what I've seen across the world is this. Boys are born with light in their eyes, but everywhere, even in the safest places, the world finds a way to turn that light off. Dad, why do you think boys in places like Australia and New Zealand, where there's peace, nature, and freedom, still feel like they have to hide their pain? Why is silence still killing our boys, even in the calmest corners of the world?
Heavenly good, you just described one of the quietest tragedies on earth. Because in Australia and Oceania, the crisis is not in what we see. It's what we've taught boys not to say. And I want to begin by saying something hard. Peace without expression is just polished pain. You can have blue skies, you can have nature, beaches, forests, freedom. But if a boy is dying inside and the world tells him, just smile and carry on, then we are not raising men. We are burying boys alive. In Australia, just like you said, suicide is the number 1 killer of young boys aged 15 to 24. Not cancer, not accident, suicide. And the most painful part, most of them never said a word. No note, no calls for help, no warning, because from birth they were taught the rule book, which is don't cry, don't talk, be a bloke, be man up, and when that pressure becomes too much, they implode quietly. They grow from lively to silent, from hopeful to high, from playing footy to planning their own exit. And we pretend we didn't see it coming. My daughter, we did. We saw the sign. We just didn't know how to hold space for male pain. Now, let's talk about the Aboriginal boys of Australia. The ones whose ancestors were stolen, stripped, and silenced. According to Beyond Blue and the Australian Human Rights Commission, Aboriginal boys are 4 times more likely to die by suicide. 4 times. Not because they are genetically weak, but because they are born into a society that still sees them as a problem, not a people. My daughter, they live in communities forgotten by government, isolated from opportunity. They grow up with grief, but no grief counselors. Many have never even been hugged by their own father because their father never received affection either. What you have is a lineage of locked heart. And eventually, that kind of emotional starvation becomes suicide, crime, or complete disconnection. And no one calls it trauma. They call those boys trouble. In New Zealand, the Maori people are known for their pride and history. Hoo-ha, hee-ha. But behind the beauty is pain, especially for Maori boys. The New Zealand Mental Health Foundation confirms that young Maori males are at higher risk for suicide and self-harm than any other group. And do you know why? Because their pain was passed down but never unpacked. Their grandparents were colonized. Their fathers were ashamed to cry. Their brothers disappeared into drinking and silence. And now they are the ones pretending to be okay. In a culture that values community, yes, but also values quiet strength over emotional honesty. My daughter, so they suffer beautifully, politely, until they can't anymore. In Papua New Guinea and many Pacific islands, manhood is enforced with fears. Boys undergo rituals that are supposed to make them men. Some are physically painful, others are emotionally scaring. In many traditional villages, boys are told a man never speaks of sorrow. A man never backs down. But what if sorrow is killing him? What if backing down will save his life? See, in these places, abuse is still called discipline, just like Nigeria. And fear is mistaken for respect. And boys who show emotion are accused of being coarse, feminine, or rebellious. So the boys are hardened, they suppress, they grown into men who know how to beat but not how to hold, who know how to lead but not how to love. Heavenly God, in Australia and the Pacific, what's killing boys is not poverty. It's not the lie that says it's fine. That boy who stop talking is just quiet. The boy who start drinking is just growing up. The boy who withdraws completely is just figuring things out. All those are lies. Until one day, he's not there anymore. And all that is left is, we never knew he was struggling. But the truth is, we did know. We just didn't know how to listen to a boy without words. What boys in Australia and Oceania need isn't more discipline. It's more permission to feel, to cry without shame, to speak without fear, to be raised by men who teach strength, but also model softness. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. My daughter, a strong man can lift weight, but a healed man can lift people. See, I've walked on peaceful road in some of these regions. I've seen boys surfing, laughing, hanging out, but underneath many of those laughs is a truth they've been trained not to say. I'm hurting and I don't know how to stop. And until we start having that conversation, even paradise will keep producing broken boys. And no wave, no tree, no beautiful view can heal a boy who doesn't feel safe enough to speak. So I say this now to every parent, to every leader and father watching. Don't wait for your son to cry out. Sit with him now and ask him. Ask him uncomfortable questions. Listen without judgment. Because in Oceania, heavenly good, silence has become a storm. And if we don't interrupt it now, we will lose an entire generation to a war we never saw coming.
Dad,
Yeah?
when I hear the word Middle East, I don't think of oil or politics.
No.
I think of boys running from gunfire.
Exactly.
Boys holding their baby brothers in bombed out buildings.
Tragedy.
Boys kneeling at graves, digging with their bare hands.
Jeez.
In Gaza, I saw the face of a boy whose entire family was wiped out. His name was Yazan.
Oh God.
He was only 9.
Jeez.
He sat next to the rubble, holding a photo of his sister and saying nothing. Because when pain gets that loud, you go silent.
Exactly.
Since the war began, over 14,000 children have been killed in Gaza. Many of them were boys who once played football in the streets. Now, their names on a wall or pieces in the dirt. In Syria, millions of children have grown up knowing only war. According to UNICEF, over 5.8 million Syrian children are in need of humanitarian aid, and many of the boys are either orphans or soldiers. Some were recruited by armed groups as young as 10 years old. What kind of world teaches a boy to kill before he learns multiplication? The hunger crisis is beyond what most people can imagine. Over 2 million boys under age 5 are severely malnourished.
Oh God.
Some of them die in hospital beds with TV tubes too big for their arm, and no one hears their cries. In Iraq, many boys have lost their father to war and are now being raised by grief. In Iran, boys are punished for singing, dancing, or speaking freely. In Saudi Arabia, boys are trained in strict obedience, but not in empathy.
No.
They're taught power, but not permission to feel.
Yeah.
And all across the Middle East, boys are being shaped by trauma,
Yeah.
religious fear, and militarized masculinity. They don't cry, they don't talk. They just carry the weight of religion. Till one day, they drop it or explode. And Dad,
Yeah?
I don't believe boys were created to carry guns.
No.
I believe they were made to carry kindness.
Yes.
But the world keeps rewriting their destiny.
Exactly.
Dad,
Yeah?
in the Middle East,
Yeah?
many boys are taught that power is better than peace
Yeah.
and silence is safer than truth. Why does the world keep turning religion, war, and culture into reasons to break boys instead of raising them? And what must we do globally to rewrite the future of these boys before it's too late?
Thank you, my daughter, and thank you for asking the question the world keeps avoiding. Why does religion, culture, and war keeps breaking boys instead of raising them? And what must we do before it's too late? Let me say this clearly. For the record, we are destroying boys in the Middle East and we are pretending it's righteousness. Gaza, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Iran, even Saudi Arabia. These are not just war zones or religious nations. These are the burial grounds of forgotten boyhood. And I don't care what ideology you believe in. If your religion, your politics, your tribe, or your honor require the suffering of boys and children in general, then it is not sacred. It is abuse. Because no holy book, no prophet, no nation has ever been justified in killing a child spirit in the name of order. Let's start with Gaza, a place where boys no longer cry because cry doesn't bring back your mother. Since the war began, over 14,000 children have been killed, and many of them were boys. Some of these boys were poets, some were future doctors, some were just learning to ride a bicycle, but now they are gone, and those who remain, they are being raised in rubble, not homes, in fear, not faith, in grief, not growth. And when they scream, the word debate, who is right, who is wrong. But that boy doesn't care about politics. He just wants food. He wants safety. He wants a hug. And the fact that we can't give him that is not just a failure of the government in that country. It's a failure of humanity. In Syria, the war has raged for over a decade now. And do you know who paid the highest price? Not the soldier, but the boys who were dragged into militias. Boys who watched their schools explode. Boys who now lead household at age 11. Some of them can no longer speak because war does something to a child's voice. It makes it irrelevant. And after years of being ignored, the boy learns to be quiet. Not out of strength, but out of surrender. Heavenly good. These boys are now men in broken bodies. They do not play, they do not laugh, they do not imagine. Because war did not just bomb their schools, it bombed their emotion. And the world moves on. And the boys are still stuck in the moment they lost everything. In Yemen, the weapon is not a gun, it's hunger. According to UNICEF, more than 2 million boys under 5 are severely malnourished. Not just hungry, but dying. And the question is not, where is the food? The question is, where is the global soul? How do the world leaders sleep at night, knowing little boys are digging in trash just to eat roots and sand? How? These boys don't have enemies. They are not rebels. They are not threats. They are not soldiers. They are just children. And still, the bombs fall. And still, the aid is blocked. And still, the silence from the international community is louder than children's screams. This is injustice. That is evil, decorated in indifference. What about Iran? Boys are punished for dancing in that country, for smiling at the wrong time, for speaking freely. What kind of a country is that? Even in Saudi Arabia, many boys grow up under strict controls, where crying is shameful, where softness is weakness, where religion is used not to raise art, but to harden them. And so what happened? My daughter, what happened? The boys grow up emotionally paralyzed. They know the Quran by memory, but not their own feelings. They know how to argue about doctrine, but don't know how to hug their own sons. Is that life? And when these boys become father, the cycle repeats. Cold men raising cold boys. Generation after generation of boys raised in obedience, but never in love. Heavenly good. All around Middle East, and yes, even in so-called civilized country, boys are being taught that the only way to survive is to become what hurts them. And the truth is that odd boys will only becoming hard boys. And hard boys are becoming harmful men. And then we blame them for repeating what they were never allowed to heal. And we wonder, why are men emotionally unavailable? Why are boys addicted to porn, gambling, war, or violence? We ask all those questions. And the truth is, the world taught them you are only valuable when you are useful. You are only respected when you are feared. And you are only a man when you have no tears. And that is a lie. And that lie is what is killing boys slowly, globally, and silently. You ask what we must do before it's too late. I will tell you. Number 1, we must raise a new kind of boy. One who knows his strength, but also knows his heart. One who can hold a woman, but also hold a child. One who knows war exists, but chooses peace anyway. We must stop using religion to justify emotional starvation. We must stop calling cultural abuse tradition. We must stop raising boys to become the monsters their mother fear. And we must stop clapping for boys who survive hell. That is not a trophy they won. They only acquire trauma. We need to start asking them why they had to survive it in the first place. And all this starts with honest parenting, with schools that teach empathy, with religious leaders who model softness, not just sermons. It starts with men like me, who will say to boys like my little king, your little brother, you are allowed to cry, you are allowed to ask for help, you are allowed to feel, and you are still a man. My daughter, from the war zones of Gaza to the quiet depression of Ireland, from the mines of Peru to the corners of Lagos, one thing is clear. Boys everywhere are crying, but they cry in different languages. Some cry with fists, some cry with knives, some cry with silence, some cry with suicide, but they are all crying. And the world must now decide, will we listen or will we keep punishing them for the pain we never helped them process? As for me and my house, we will listen and we will raise boys with heart, not just hands. And we will never again allow silence to kill our sons, because strong boys do cry, and now they will cry no more in silence.
Please, I know I'm just a little girl. I know I don't sit in government offices. I don't preach in churches or mosques. I don't wear suits, uniforms, or religious robes. But I have something you don't have. I still believe that children matter, and that includes boys. Please, let boys be boys. Not men, not protectors, not machines. Just boys. To every mother around the world, please stop raising your son to be your emotional husband. Stop telling him you're the man of the house now when he's only 8. He's not your partner, he's not your protector. He is your child. Love him like one. Hold him, let him cry, let him fall apart sometimes, because the world will try to break him one day. And if you don't build his heart, he will build walls instead. To every father, please, stop trying to raise a man. Raise a human. You say, I suffered, so he must too. But is that love, or is that pain using your hands? Hug your son. Talk to him. Apologize when you hurt him. Don't wait until he's grown and broken to say, I was doing my best. Because sometimes your best still broke him, but it's not too late to do better. To every president, prime minister, minister of education, and child welfare agency, why is there no national plan to protect boys emotionally? Why is there no law that makes mental health for boys a human right? You fund wars, you build roads, you host summits. But what about the boys sitting on the edge of bridges, whispering, nobody sees me? That's not just a cry for help. That is a policy failure. Please invest in healing, not just punishment, but real daily healing for the boy child. To pastors and priests, imams, rabbis, Buddhists, mosques, Hindus, gurus, Jehovah's Witness elders. You teach us to love. You preach about obedience, about manhood, about purpose. But what about emotion? What about softness? What about kindness to boys who don't know how to pray because they're still learning how to breathe? If your religion makes room for the world, make room for the boy child too. To the world, the boy is tired of pretending, tired of performing, tired of protecting others while no one protects him. In Africa, he hawks water in traffic. In Gaza, he holds his dead brother. In America, he smiles while dying in silence. In France, he is stopped by the police. In India, he's in a factory. In Ireland, he's on a bench doing drugs. In the UK, he's in a gang. In Russia, he's drafted. In Venezuela, he's hungry. In China, he's silent. And everywhere, he's misunderstood. Please, let him play. Let him feel. Let him cry. Let him make mistakes. Let him be slow sometimes. Let him be soft. Let him play with dolls if he wants to. Let him hug. Let him say, I love you, and not be called weak. Let him be a boy, not a bodyguard, not a bank, not a soldier, not a husband in training, just a child. That's all he is, and that's all he wants to be. To families, please break the cycle. You say, my father didn't hug me and I turned out fine. But did you really turn out fine? Or did you turn out angry? Did you turn out closed off? Did you turn out emotionally tired even when life looks perfect from the outside? Please, don't pass down your pain. Pass down healing. I am just a girl, but I see clearly, because children always see what adults pretend not to. And what I see is this. If we do not heal our boys, they will grow into men who hurt our girls. And those girls will raise boys again, and the pain will go in circles forever until somebody stops it. So please, let me be the one to say it. As a child, on behalf of every child, stop breaking our boys. Let boys be boys. And maybe then they can grow into men who know how to love, and the world will finally be healed. From me and my dad, representing the Onaolapo family. See you next time. Bye.